let's back up to the beginning of our conversation. Let's remember who's consuming and be empathetic to their experience. Build your organization around that. Technical acumen is an absolute part of it. But let's look at who consumes your product or service and then build it around their experience with it and drive towards that. I am an absolute believer in that if you do the right things from a good place, that good things will happen. And yes, profit has to be a part of it because that's the way the world works. And I'm fine with that. You've got to provide value. You've got to provide it early. You've got to let them know the value that you provide. And you have to thoughtfully remind them of that value throughout time.
So Roy Alexander, Chief Revenue Officer at VisionNet. Thank you for joining me on the Future Fuzz Podcast.
Absolutely. No, good to see you and glad to be here.
So to get things kicked off on a high vibe note, what's the best thing that happened this week for you?
Best thing that happened this week to me, I'll go to a personal side of things. My youngest son jumped up one morning and counted to 100 and said his ABCs from A to Z, just right out of the gate.
Oh.
We've been struggling with him to do that. Just woke up one morning and got to it. So I'll do that.
Yeah.
That was a surprising and a great way to get the week started. It was.
That is beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Keeping things on the personal side, I know we had a pre-call. You mentioned how important it's been for you to step away from work and do something analog like woodworking, building with your hands.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, why does that matter so much to you?
I think, I know the way I feel is that operating at a high frequency, you're always connected. It just feels good to jump on with some wood, walk out in the woods, get away from that. I mean, there's times too where I take the boys hiking and I don't even take my phone with me. I don't want any technology even close. And just get out of it. It just, I feel like that disconnecting has a different meaning these days than it used to. And to truly leave it all and get somewhere where you can't get contacted. And a little bit of risk involved, but I think that it's a good risk. I think inherently being a human on our planet, there's risk. So let's jump in and not have a what's it called? A lifeline.
Tether.
There you go. Perfect. Tether. Yeah, not have a tether. So that's why. Two, the smell of wood dust and making something. Well, I guess I'll add to this because I've thought about it a little bit. In telecommunications, it's fairly rare that you start something and finish it the same day. Pretty rare. Woodworking, and I'm not a great woodworker. Don't get me wrong. I'm not building Stradivarius. So from that, being able to start a birdhouse and finish a birdhouse with my son on the same day, man, it's a good day. It is.
That's a good day.
It is.
So do you find that stepping away from screens actually changes how you think about leadership or decision making, like when you come back?
I do. I think that and I am a fan of technology and platforms and all of those things, but I think to be able to step back and look at it from a personal view versus a platform view kind of helps. Mm-hmm. It's easy to forget that we run the platforms don't run us. And so especially in the sales and marketing realm where you've got so many correlations that have to be made and you've got so many things that need to work from a platform level, to step back and just think through what is the goal of these 47 things that we interact with every day? What is the goal? Yeah. And from our perspective, and this might sound corny, but I'll go that way anyhow, it is to connect people to the things that they need to be connected to on a technical level. Whether that be connectivity or managed services, what have you. That's the goal. So you and I could have a conversation this morning. Is the goal, and it sometimes gets lost in the day to day. So it's beneficial to me from that perspective. Just think about people. That's the name of the game, right? Is not only people within VisionNet, but certainly the people that we serve and our clients and things like that. Just turn up the volume a little bit on empathy.
I love that.
I talk to our knock about it often. I get, please just be empathetic. I
Yeah.
know that it's Roy's problem that he can't connect because I'm not you. I know, but please
Yeah.
just be empathetic that I need the things that we provide and I currently don't have them. Let's remember empathy.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about VisionNet. Who does the company serve?
We are carrier and business primary. So, and
Okay.
if you don't mind, I'll go in a little bit of history of who we are and kind of why we're here.
Yeah,
So, VisionNet,
please.
interesting name in my opinion. So, our start, we were tapped by eight at that point nine rural telephone carriers in the state of Montana. They had some challenges on rural school accreditation and the inability for those schools to um, recruit and retain primarily foreign language instructors. And so the idea was, and this is going back 30 plus years. Hey, we maybe we can do that through video. And so they created VisionNet, hence the name VisionNet, to build a video conferencing network to overcome those challenges on behalf of our shareholders. And so from there, we've built out the largest privately owned middle mile network in the state of Montana. We've reached out regionally, so we've got MPLS assets in 24 states. We've got managed network responsibility coast to coast, and that all came. I think it's a pretty cool story because that all came primarily from client needs. Um, Clients that trusted us, knew that we knew our things, our technical aspects, would come to us and say, "Hey, we have a problem with this. Can you help us solve it?" And then that became a line of business. Um, and to step back even two steps more, and I'll age myself, but I don't mind. I was a client of VisionNet for a number of years before I came to work
Okay.
for them, and so I ingested a vast amount of services from VisionNet as a corporation before I decided to join the team.
That's great. Thank you for that
Sure, sure.
backstory. Let's talk a little bit about your role because you oversee a lot of the customer facing functions at VisionNet, sales, marketing, network operations. I'm curious, what prompted that shift to bring all of that under the revenue umbrella?
I'll go back to empathy, and not that
Yeah.
it was lacking, but just a polish for customer facing roles. I felt like it was a necessary change in the world that we live in today. Again, I'll speak again about platforms. We're
Hmm.
fortunate enough that we are able to have world class platforms that run all of our operational aspects within VisionNet. The downside of that is it's very easy to forget that there's people at the other end of it. And so
Yeah.
luckily with conversations with our CEO and leadership team, that I was able to make the case that I feel like that customer facing operations should be treated as a sales function. And so
Mm.
we were able to turn that around. I think part of the decision from my perspective, at least too, is because I was a consumer of NOC services in a previous life from VisionNet, and was happy enough with the service that I decided to join the team. I wanted to make sure that all of our clients felt that way. So to bring it through with all of the touch points where we're talking to Harry about the issues he may have with his service, to be able to treat that with a polish that sometimes isn't present on a technical basis.
Yeah, that's helpful. And so, for the benefit of the listener, how would you define NOC services?
Our NOC services, in the vein of which I'm speaking now, is truly so. For the people that don't know, and I'm sure everybody does, but Network Operations Center. So the heart and brain of our organization. And so we proactively monitor all services that are delivered through VisionNet to the end users. And
Okay.
in our case, it's businesses and it's other carriers. That's who we
Okay.
serve. And then they jump in and troubleshoot, whether it be the medium, not consequential. They jump in and troubleshoot and work with the end users to either restore services or redo configurations based on changes they've made, and basically and will fundamentally keep eyes and ears and brains focused on the things that drive our business.
You said something interesting in the pre-call that in technology, the person connected to the technology often gets lost.
Yeah.
So when did you realize that that was happening?
I think it probably rattled around for a long time, Harry. That because
Mm,
it's from my position, I see again, I see numbers, I see things move up and down. I see all of that, and it's really easy to, I won't say forget, but it's really easy to not pay as much attention to the output of that service. Um, the people that purchase from us need it. Um,
yeah.
we're not in the business of nice to have. We're in the business of that it is a critical part of them running their business, and and this is where I think it gets back to the personal level and supporting their families. Um,
Yeah.
I have the conversation often, probably too much because I think a lot of my team is not that excited to hear it anymore. But I say it almost every day that hey, we are our task as a sales team is to not only look after our own self-interest. It's a natural part of being a human. I'm not going to discount that for anybody, but also all of our employees, all of their families, all of our clients and their families. It all
Mm,
goes together. It goes, the retail customer that we have that has, 20 some, 40 some, 60 some locations. Um, it's not just transactional. That is tied to a person's ability to earn a living and support their families and enjoy being a person in this world. If our connection doesn't work, credit card doesn't swipe, they don't make their revenue. They have to it bleeds forever. Sometimes to a point where it's overwhelming.
yeah. Mm,
But just to slow it down and realize this isn't just a piece of glass being handed off to a machine. It's a little more than
mm,
that. And then
yeah.
let's be empathetic and let's be thoughtful that is a thing in this world.
I appreciate how much you've emphasized the need to be empathetic. Who built that or who cultivated that in you? Like who inspired you? Was there a mentor? Is there someone like where did you learn that?
I think man, let me count for a second. I don't know, 30 plus year career in telecommunications. Uh,
Yeah.
made it high on my list, and I was super fortunate early on that I had the opportunity and was became friends with some CEOs that were wonderful people. And
Mm,
they kind of taught me that the pieces and parts ultimately always come back to people. And being from
mm,
a sales background and naturally my personality, I enjoy talking to people and all of that.
yeah.
It just made sense. And then, through my career, working through, individual contributor to team leader to regional leader to so on and so forth, being able to try to tap that along the way. I'll
Mm,
tell you a story that I find wonderful. There's a wonderful woman in the world named Bracken Mays. She is now VP of a call center. I don't recall the name of it, not consequential, but we worked together a number of years ago at a company where we did customer service and billing functions from a call center basis for cable television systems. And
yeah.
when I posted about, hey, I had taken a new role as chief revenue officer, Bracken jumped in and said, "Hey, I literally yesterday in a team meeting, I brought up what you used to always tell us of of you never tell a customer no, but you figure out how and then move that around." And I'm messing up what she used because I remember we had that conversation a lot. Because at this point,
Yeah.
we were 400 plus agents. They were all remote, a very, very hard organization to manage. And trying to bring it all back, the answer is it isn't no, because that's not our role in this. Um,
Mm,
it's give me some time to figure out how, and then we can readdress it. But the
mm,
flatline answer should never be no in my experience.
okay.
Limitations aside, as much
Yeah.
as I would
Yeah.
like to say, hey, if somebody needs help with um, fixing an engine, that I would jump in. I don't think I'd be much value there. That being said, within the vein of your line of business, certainly, but it was nice
Yeah.
to see that people do remember, through time, because I made it a point to interact with as many people in that organization on a daily basis as I possibly could. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes even traveling, when I would be on a sales function traveling, I would get I would find, because a lot of times we had pockets of agents. So Minneapolis is a perfect one.
Yeah.
Where was it? Little town outside of Minneapolis, we had 6 or 7 agents. Um, I was up there on business, and I asked them to go ahead, get me in touch, and let's just take them out to dinner. These people nobody in our organization had ever met in person, and I did that on a pretty frequent basis because it matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were the people interacting with our clients.
I love the story, Vision's, origin story, how you started. And I'm curious, how does the ownership model shape the way, the company thinks about growth, responsibility, and what does it allow you to do differently that other providers can't or won't?
On the strategy side, we are incredibly fortunate that our shareholding group, um, they are solid organizations and wonderful leadership, and they understand our position in relation to them. And what that means is that they aren't necessarily built to deal with national carriers. They aren't necessarily built to deal with multi-state enterprise, and we are. And they're
Okay.
always there to how can we help move the ball forward? How can you leverage our in-ground network to get a project done versus kind of leaving us out in the wind, and we have to go do our own thing all the time. And then on a pretty common basis, because a few of our shareholders are in very small towns, they
Yeah.
tap our technical expertise to fill in where they might not have it. And it's two things from my perspective. It is a incredibly fortunate place to be, and kind of a breath of fresh air, that it's not like other boards that I've reported to where it's just profit rules a day, push, 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 push. That
Yeah.
is present. Don't get me wrong, because we are a for-profit company, but there's a level of cooperation there that I find incredibly refreshing and fortunate.
That's great. And I'm assuming that the way that relationship works, it affects how you work with your customers. It feels like it goes hand in
It
hand.
does. It does.
Yeah.
In I will say a vastly positive direction. A lot of
Hmm.
the opportunities that we get based on our geographic base location. So it's the state of Montana, enormous
Yeah.
amount of land between people and places
Yeah.
and towers. And a lot of the time, the decision of where to put an asset from a client perspective is not an ideal place for a network perspective. And
Hmm.
our shareholders' ability and willingness to jump in and help us solve those problems is it's amazing. It is. We've got a
Yeah.
great relationship, and we work hard, and so do they, to maintain it.
That's great. You also said that the pipeline growth was a priority, but not in an aggressive
Yeah,
way, more in a thoughtful, like values aligned way. What makes pipelines like challenging right now in your space?
I think a lot of noise, Harry. I do. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
because of the ease. And I'll give you an example. You and I, right now on this call, we could probably open up tabs. We could spin up a website. We could
Yeah.
grab a few tools, and we could be in business. There's a lot of that going on,
Yeah.
delivery aside, but the
Yeah.
capture of eyes and the capture of interest has gotten noisy, and so that's why, versus broad net casting on a frequent basis. There's a little bit of that we have to do, but we focus more on direct and thoughtful. And when I say thoughtful, what I mean by that is enough intelligence about who we're approaching that we truly can add value to that relationship and deliver the things that they need, versus let me put this on Instagram to 18 billion people, and then, all right, if I get 1%, I'm successful, and I get
Yeah.
to winter in a place better than Montana for winter. Um, that is, yeah, that'd be great, but it's just not who we're built to be.
Yeah. You made a great distinction during our pre-call. If managed services work well, you get forgotten, and if they fail, you get remembered.
Man,
So
yeah, I'm glad you
how do you stay
mentioned it. Some
visible?
people will turn their heads when they hear it, but I feel like it's the
Yeah.
truth. Is that there's
Yeah.
an effort behind delivery of a successful managed service to remind people of the things that we do in the background, because there's an enormous amount of
Yeah.
action that again, if we're successful, an
Yeah.
enormous amount of effort and things that happen in the background for you to be able to forget about. Um, the unfortunate
Yeah.
side of that is if we don't every now and again remind them of those things,
Hmm.
then it could potentially put us in a spreadsheet decision. And what I mean by that is
Yeah.
that there's some contraction going on in their business, and a group that doesn't interact with us is looking at a spreadsheet and they go, yeah, this could go, and they don't understand it, and so the post sale value proposition continues, and not just on
Yeah.
upsale opportunities. It continues on the relationship basis. Because again, it's 2026. Um, Easy place to forget about relationships. It really is.
And I think now more than ever in this world of AI, we're starving for human to human
Yeah.
connection, and we need more of that now. And I think companies that can step that up. And also this idea of like I experience it on my side with the agency side sometimes. Like I'll do extra work for a client or do something that helps their show and I don't tell them about it. And then I realize like they don't know if I don't tell them. So it's almost like show your work and remind them of the extra things you're doing to go, that extra mile for them sometimes because they just assume it's just happening or they don't even know that it's happening unless you point it out to
Yeah.
them.
Kind of an uncomfortable place, though, isn't it? Because you don't, I'm just
Yeah.
by nature, I'm not a celebrate Roy kind of person. And so by nature, to be able to say, hey, just, well, how do you present that in a way where it doesn't come off as arrogance? Um, or
Yeah.
something else. I don't know if arrogance is the right word, but something along those lines of how do you do that? And it's challenging. I think we do a
Yeah.
fairly good job. I think there's always room for improvement, but I do absolutely believe as long as we're thoughtful about what we're trying to accomplish, that we've got the right people to make the right decision.
Yeah, and I think that's a great word, thoughtful, because it's if your job is to keep the lights on, you don't want to brag about, hey, we kept the lights on. Oh, you mean you did your
Right.
job? Thanks.
Yeah. There's another component of it of hey, here's the report of all the things we did to keep your network
Yeah,
running, and well, I mean, we hired you to keep the network running. Why is that a thing? Well, because it's a thing. Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes yeah, they appreciate it, and they may not know, and they may not know all the things that need to happen behind the scenes to keep the lights on. I think sometimes it's helpful to build that relationship.
Sure.
Like you said, if everything starts to look like a commodity, it's the company that goes that extra mile to maintain that relationship, to have those check-ins, to say, hey, what else could we be doing that we're not? So,
And
I think
it's a thing
that's
that is
valuable.
incredibly easy to discuss and say, and very
Yeah,
hard to execute. It is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we let me think now, 2.5, 3 years ago, probably now, we acquired a data center group in the state of Montana that led us to be the largest data center facility owner in our state. And
Okay.
and and being able to then walk through, excuse me, walk through, okay, what does it look like tomorrow? And then make decisions. And I'll put a little plug in with it for our engineering team because I'm proud of it being the first 800 gigabit network in the Mountain West region.
Mm,
That sounds great
that's
on the
great.
surface because it's network.
Yeah,
Behind it, the reasoning is one because it is leading edge as far as bandwidth availability and reduced latency and all those things. But because now we own 5 data centers in the state of Montana, we need
mm,
to be able to look at what tomorrow is going to bring. Going back to AI, I would
yeah.
assume it's not going anywhere. I
No.
think it's an incredibly useful tool. I think somebody somewhere is probably going to need to cap it just to make sure it does the things we need it to do. Because I've also seen movies that have a whole different story.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Same.
But what
Yeah.
that leads to is distributed infrastructure through a high bandwidth, low latency infrastructure gives us a chance to present to the market something that is kind of there today, but not really, and not ruin what I see out of my window, which is a beautiful vista of the Montana landscape
Mm,
with a two
yeah.
million square foot facility that's a big brown wall. Um, It's a
Yeah.
necessary
Yeah.
part of our technology. It's going to have to go, and I don't want to be a not in my backyard type of person. That being said, I feel like, Harry, that's a groundswell that's growing. And
Yeah.
I also feel like we're positioned well to overcome that with distributed infrastructure because of the network upgrades.
That makes a lot of sense. So in your environment, I imagine the enterprise deals often take close to a year to close. And so in that environment, what actually moves a deal forward?
Wow, that's a good question. I think the consistency of communication and relationship building,
Yeah.
and that's the and I was taught this. I don't even know if this is a term anymore, but when I first got into sales, it was called penny pacing.
Hmm.
And what that meant was you had to deliver a request from a prospect. Each time you did that, you earned a penny. You couldn't ask them for anything from their side until you had a dime to spend. Um, and so just continuing that, you need any for more. Do you need more information? Great, I'll have that to you by Tuesday. That literally means you'll have it to them by Tuesday. It doesn't mean Tuesday afternoon you close your
Yeah.
business. It means by Tuesday. And being able to
Yeah.
build that trust along the way, I think it helps solidify the 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 ability to condense that time frame to a certain extent. But in the world that we live in, contractual obligations are real. It is just you've got to early and often keep your pipeline in mind. As you know, to your point,
Yeah.
12, 18, 24, 36 months later is when that opportunity will present itself for real. But
Yeah.
the touch points along the way keep the ball moving.
You talked a little bit about the unintended proof of value, starting small and earning trust over time. Do you feel is that really like in when you think about your strategy, something you're intentional with?
It is. And
Yeah.
a little challenging in the structure of larger organizations because they've compartmentalized the decision-making process kind of away from the technical requirement process. And so it
Okay.
makes that navigation a little tougher. But man, I personally don't think well, this is gonna doing the right thing every day and doing the things that you said you were gonna do, how is that ever gonna end up being a bad thing?
Yeah.
Regardless if it's Royco with two locations or if it's a multinational corporation, somebody somewhere is still going to remember. Yeah, but this group did what they were asked to do without compensation, just on the informational side. Because I feel like information is so easy to get today that it reduces the value of it to some point. But at the
Hmm.
same time, it's still necessary for a decision. We go through this
Yeah.
when we have to opt into a new platform or a new piece of hardware or new technology or something else. Oh, there is 6 years of content of information, but nor do I have the time. If I'm talking to a vendor about something that our company needs and they drop off a 465-page PDF, I don't have the time nor the wherewithal necessarily to dig through that to find the pieces that I need. I need them to
Hmm.
deliver it in a way that it's consumable. And I think,
Hmm.
unfortunately, as an industry and maybe even a society, we've gotten away from specifics because it's so easy to grab generalizations to get to the you asked me this specifically, here is the answer to that specifically, here's a file that gives you all the other information, but specifically here's the answer to your question, what else do you need? That
Yeah.
is again another easy thing to talk about, hard thing to execute on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious how that plays into how you communicate what it is that VisionNet does, content. You're starting to invest more intentionally in thought leadership, and you've mentioned the connected Montana theme. Why is that becoming more important now?
From from our perspective, again, because it's getting to be a noisy marketing market, um, to be able to consistently speak to the services that we deliver from every level of our organization, I think means more today than it ever has.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they're not looking to the chief revenue officer for that message. I've been giving it for 30 years. I know. They're looking at it from a perspective of every interaction within an organization. Is it a consistent message? And hopefully we're successful in doing that.
I think you used the Home Depot analogy. Too many choices, overwhelming for buyers.
Right.
How do you help how do you help customers make sense of complexity without oversimplifying?
Well, two things that we have done and continue to do. So we went through an exercise, I don't know, 18, 24 months ago, where we looked at all of our lines of business and had to make some hard decisions on focus of, okay, yes, this is here, and yes, it generates revenue. Is that the best place for us to be? Yes or no? And condense that down into manageable and consumable lines of business. And so we've been able to go through that exercise, and then through it be able to standardize the language around it and the offer. Um, as you well
Mm,
know, or maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you say managed service, and some people think, okay, well, specifically, what does that mean? Some
yeah.
companies live in that gray of well, it could mean this and it could mean that. I felt compelled to get both our support teams, the sales teams, and marketing. Everybody, let's define that so they know exactly what the expectation is. Because I feel like it's incredibly tough to be successful if we don't have aligned expectations at the end.
Yeah, it sounds like it's the importance of having the leadership team understand how to educate rather than just sell.
Yeah, yes, and
Yeah,
both internally and externally. I
yeah,
because it's
yeah,
we'll take a knock technician that focuses primarily on optical layer things. He still needs to know the other things that VisionNet does, just so he can speak to it in a competent and professional way. And being able to
yeah.
train that up is it's a little bit of a lift, but I think it's a lift worth doing.
As we talk, move a little bit more into like the big picture, given the infrastructure you have, you don't have like a single massive hyperscale facility. You have almost like a different model. And I'm curious why you think distributed infrastructure might be the smarter bet.
Oh well, I think a couple reasons. One, it exists today, so speed to market. Okay, great.
Yeah,
Two, the ability, and I would assume, much like a lot of the applications that we use on a daily basis, there's going to come a point where those need to be pushed from a technical perspective closer to the edge. I think we've all heard it before: edge
hmm
computing and edge this and edge that. I
yeah,
really feel
yeah,
like we're getting to a point in time where that has to become a reality because again, even on an AI side, the AI platform. So all of the big names, ChatGPT and Grok and Perplexity and all, they're gonna and they probably are today, but they're gonna be competing for interaction. Um, the
mm,
faster that interaction can be delivered, probably going to move them up in the winner's circle. And it
yeah.
seems to be a natural place to live that then that's closer and then that's faster and then that all works together to be able to get it. And then I'll add to this because I saw an article the other day of probably real concerns of power consumption and water consumption
Yeah,
and all of the
yeah,
things that come with progress. Whereas
yeah,
I feel like we're well positioned to be able to deliver a like service through a distributed infrastructure because of the network upgrades and because of those things without huge impacts to power infrastructure and water and all of those things because again I don't have a million square feet of things to cool. I don't have those same problems. It's smaller and more of them, but network overcomes at the end of the day. And two, I'm getting closer to end users faster.
what do you think most people misunderstand about where enterprise infrastructure is actually headed?
What I think people misunderstand about where it's headed. I think there's two groups, right? There's adopters, and then there's people that are resistant because of the big brother aspect of
Yeah,
a lot of the applications. I mean, just a simple,
yeah,
I say simple, a presented as simple, complex, managed Wi-Fi installation. Um, we have the ability to see. We can't see that it's unless my laptop's named Roy's laptop. If it
yeah,
is that, then yeah, I can correlate. But outside of that, I can see this device specifically uses these applications and how much bandwidth that's used. I think there's some
yeah,
trepidation there, rightfully so, that over time, a lot of that will be misused. Um, and
Mm,
I mean, we're not in the data mining business necessarily for
yeah.
VisionNet. We don't do that.
Yeah.
Upstream, I'm sure some of the services that we deliver, somebody does, but I think you're trading a little bit of that privacy for a lot of bit of that functionality. I personally have landed on that. That's an okay place to be. That traveling down the road at 70 miles an hour and sitting in the passenger seat and being able to watch a high def video is pretty cool. Um,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
comes with inherently, all right, somebody's going to know you're doing that just
Yeah.
by the nature
Yeah.
of it being delivered. And so I think there's a level of comfort that sometimes gets off track there from a personal standpoint. Um, from a
Yeah.
commercial standpoint, I think a lot of enterprise organizations have grown quickly, and they have put together what they needed along the lines. And then when they step back and look at it and go, wow, I've got 17 different networks with 6 different um, equipment manufacturers. And now I've outgrown the ability for my internal teams to support this.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do?
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough call from a client perspective. It really is, because there's an expense to it. And as much as I
Yeah.
would love
Yeah.
to say, yeah, everybody can just rip out everything and replace it with VisionNet, it's not the reality of it. Again, I'll go
Yeah.
back to, where do we fit as an organization to provide value to that situation so we're in the right place at the right time to help our clients, is a much more positive place to be than having the expectations that all of the things you bought yesterday are wrong and I'm going to provide you with all of them right. It's not the truth.
Yeah.
And so to be able to put it together in a way that we still provide value, they still get benefit, it's the challenge. And I don't think it's new to this industry, or certainly not VisionNet.
Well, I can really appreciate the thoughtful approach you take when tackling these sorts of challenges. Just a couple of questions as we wrap up. Based on all the experience you've had in this industry, 25 plus years, what do you believe today, Roy, that you didn't believe early in your career?
What do I believe today that I didn't believe earlier? But man, so again, I'm from a sales background. I'm the easiest guy to convince. I love a good sales pitch. So what I didn't believe previously, here's what I will say to that, is that I feel like now the things that were said at trade shows and things like that 10, 15 years ago are actually real today. Not that they weren't
Hmm.
then, but it took an
Yeah.
enormous amount of effort. Whereas today, man, that's real. And the
Yeah.
the the part I like about it is the consumption side. Um, my Wi-Fi does work pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can watch a high def video going down the highway. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You can have, what, 100,000 people in a stadium all interacting on a video level at the same time. Man, what a great time to be in technology, because it actually
Mm-hmm.
works. Previously, okay, it kind of worked for some people and kind of didn't for others, and there's a user education thing that needed to be overcome. I feel like that a lot of the larger players in our industry, and VisionNet certainly, and a lot of regional people have figured it out, that the service delivered is in a flavor that is consumable on a day-to-day basis, and that's great, because
Yeah.
it hasn't always been that way.
Yeah. It's gotta give you some good feelings to see that what's possible now that wasn't possible back
Yeah,
then.
it's true. And I feel
Yeah.
I feel like that the next iteration of AI interaction with end users and what it turns into, I am super curious about what that's going to look like. And
Yeah.
I've heard, I listened to a different podcast um, about AI and what the thought going forward would be, is that you would have a personalized AI agent that then interacts with other AI on your behalf and anticipates your
Yeah.
needs. I am in.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm in. I am. Yeah.
That's great. So what advice would you, if you were advising another CRO on navigating everything we've talked about here, long sales cycles, noisy markets, fast moving tech. What would you tell them to focus on and what to ignore?
I would say, and this is probably going to sound cheesier than I would like it to, but I would say to let's back up to the beginning of our conversation. Let's remember who's consuming and be empathetic to their experience. Build your organization around that.
Hmm.
Technical acumen is an absolute part of it. But let's look at who consumes your product or service, and then build it around their experience with it, and drive towards that.
Mm.
I am a absolute believer in that if you do the right things from a good place, that good things will happen. Um,
Mm.
and yes, profit has to be a part of it because that's the way the world works, and I'm fine with that. I'm not ashamed of being a capitalist, not at all. That being
Yeah.
said, you've got to provide value. You've got to provide it early. You've got to let them know the value that you provide, and you have to thoughtfully remind them of that value throughout time. Yeah, that's what I leave them
Well,
with.
I think that's a perfect bow for this conversation. Thanks so much for making the time to join me on the podcast and to share your inspiring story. It's been interesting to see how your career has played out and how all the decisions you make and all the inspiration and leadership and lessons you've learned put you in the place where you are now. Adding that much value, for the clients that VisionNet serves.
Yeah,
So I appreciate you sharing that journey with
sure.
us.
No, my pleasure, Harry. Thanks. It was a great conversation. I appreciate it.
So vision.net for people to learn more about VisionNet. Anywhere else you want to have folks to connect with you if they want to learn
I
more?
think that's a great place to start. We
Okay.
recently redid our website, and I think it does a good job at that. And of course, as websites go, that they'll get better
Yeah.
every day.
Okay. We'll make sure all those all details are in the show notes. Thanks again for your time, Roy. I really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Harry. Talk to you soon.